Hello and welcome everyone to On Love and Purpose. My name is Frances LaCuesta and of Beautiful Conscious Love, and I am your host for this program. So we have a very special guest today, and she is actually right here. Well, she's in her own place, but okay,
Cold Toronto.
yeah, from Toronto,
Cold Toronto.
old Toronto. Okay,
Cold,
so
cold, cold.
cold, very cold
Very
Toronto.
cold.
Yeah, I can just imagine how cold
Yes,
it is there right now.
right.
But before I introduce her to you, let me just tell you a little bit about what this program is all about. So, On Love and Purpose is a monthly interview series, and it is done in Facebook Live. And this is where I invite subject matter experts and kindred souls to talk about topics like relationships, love, purpose, and mindfulness. Now, if you want to be notified or you just want to know when the next episode is going to be, I would like to invite you to like facebook.com/beautiful conscious love. I have a fancy crawler to go with that, but let me just try this out. Um, okay, there it is. So facebook.com/beautiful conscious love. And if you know anyone who you think is going to be interested in this topic, please feel free to share this. And we will be so grateful for you if you do that. All right, let me just hide that for now. Okay, now I am going to go right ahead and introduce you to my special guest today. And she is already on the screen with me. But let me see. I'll show my name. All right. So CarolAnn Marshall is a certified conscious uncoupling coach, and she's also the author of I Dare You: Conquer Fear and Free Yourself from Emotional Abuse. She is committed to helping people through the emotional heartaches of toxic relationships. And it is she helps also rebuild their lives and help them reclaim their self-respect and dignity and help them have a new purpose in their lives. She herself has experienced a series of toxic being in toxic relationships, and she has finally been able to look within herself and realize that she needed to make the change in order for her to stop attracting men who disrespected her. And CarolAnn is here to challenge you to examine your unfulfilling relationships and make a positive change in your life. So join me in welcoming CarolAnn Marshall. Hello and welcome, CarolAnn.
Oh, pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you for joining me in this adventure.
Oh, my pleasure. It's an adventure for both of us, which is
Yes, it is. It actually is. Um, first off, yeah, yes, I would just like to say I am really grateful for you know saying yes when I ask you if we can just go ahead and do this live instead of pre-recording it. And I think this is more fun doing it this way. Right? Okay, so let me go ahead and jump right into the questions.
Mhm.
You do help people who are or who have been in toxic relationships. Now, how did you come to being here?
Well, I had been in a number of relationships, like most women. You go through relationships, and
Hmm.
you take for granted the behavior that is done towards you. We don't really pay that much attention because as women, we are programmed to be caregivers and also to please people. And let me just say right off the bat, I will refer to women the way all the way through our discussion, but I don't want people to feel that only women are abused or in toxic
Right.
relationships. Men are as well, but the vast majority are women. And so that's why I'll be referring to women as opposed to, so I don't want men to feel left out. And along the way, I realized in this last relationship that I hadn't been happy for 2 or 3 years. And it got to a point where he was starting to throw things at me. And I thought, the next thing he throws at me might be something that will either seriously injure me or kill me,
Mm-hmm.
because the things that were being thrown were getting bigger and bigger. And one day I just got up from my desk at work and walked 3 blocks to the police station, the main police station in downtown Toronto, which happens to be headquarters. And I met a female officer at the desk. And I said to her, I'm here because I want some advice on how to get out of this relationship safely.
Mm-hmm.
And her first her first words out of her mouth were, I need to connect you with Victim Services Toronto. I had no idea who they were. And they are housed on the same floor, on the main floor of the police station. They're not the police, but they're assist victims who are subjected to all kinds of events. So Victim Services then gave me lots of tips of how to safeguard myself. And then I started to make plans to leave. And after I'd left, I had to say to myself, what is it about me that's
Mm-hmm.
attracting these men? Because I was the common denominator. There wasn't a point of saying, well, it's him. It can't be him because I'm the only one that's hearing all of them. So I decided I really needed to be treated well. And by looking inside, then that gave me the opportunity to really kind of look at what was I going through, and what are these signs that I have missed. And because of that, I realized the signs are always there.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, we ignore them, or we paint over them, or we not I would also we accept them. We don't question them. We just go ahead, and the guy does something horrible to you, and you say okay, and you go along because we don't question. And that was something I started to do. And the main thing was trying to be safe, because that's the most important thing. And the main advice that Victim Services Toronto gave me was, do not give him any indication that you're leaving, because that would make it even worse. So
Yeah.
once I left, then they checked up with me, and that gave me then the impetus to write the book, because I had no intentions of writing a book. I just wanted to get myself safe and get hold of the relationship. But I realized that as I started to heal and I started to look inside myself, that there were a number of things that I recognized that I thought could help other women. And that led me to writing the book.
And thank goodness you wrote the book.
Yeah.
And
And the other good thing is that because I had been connected with Victim Services, they gave
mm-hmm.
me permission to use their safety checklists in the book. And it's an extensive way to keep yourself safe if you are in any kind of abusive relationship, not
Yeah.
just emotional abuse, but any kind of
Any
abusive
kind of
relationship.
abusive relationships.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to talk more about the book in the latter part
Yeah.
of the program, but I just wanted to point out what you said earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that it was out of your decision
Mm-hmm.
that you were able to get out of that relationship or to
Mm-hmm.
leave.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't decide, or if you didn't make that choice at that moment when those things were happening to you,
Mm-hmm.
then a big chance of that would be that you will still be in that relationship. Correct?
Probably. And the thing is that when you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, it's not something that happens overnight. And people will say, well, what took you so long? Why did you stay in this relationship? Why didn't you leave? It's not that easy, because you've invested a lot in the relationship. And especially if you have children, it's not that easy to
Mm-hmm.
just leave, because by the time you know something is wrong, but you don't know what to label it as. You just know you're
That's correct.
unhappy. You know that you have no control over what's going on. You know that you're being controlled, and it's very difficult to just up and leave. You can't just up and leave.
Right.
So you have to plan.
Yeah, there's so much at stake. And
Hmm.
as you mentioned also,
Yeah,
especially if there are children involved.
right.
So,
And
yeah,
the other thing too, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The
uh-huh.
other thing too is that people don't see it. And I think that's part of the challenge. If someone is in a physically abusive relationship, you will see bruises or you'll
Mm-hmm.
see a broken arm.
Right.
But in emotional abuse, you don't see anything. It's all inside. It's all in your head.
Yeah,
It's just like you're saying to someone, I'm so stressed. And they're looking at you and like, I can't see anything. The same with emotional abuse. You can't see it. And because you can't see it, we don't talk about it because people don't believe us.
that's
They
true.
don't believe us.
Yeah. So now that you mentioned that, can you define what a toxic relationship is, and how is it? Is it also the same definition as being in an emotionally abusive relationship?
I think so. It's for me, I define an emotionally abusive relationship as the mental control of another by the systematic undermining of that person's self confidence, self esteem, and sense of self. And that's what a toxic relationship is. You really have your self confidence goes down.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think much of yourself. And the other thing that happens with a toxic relationship is that, and the same an emotionally abused relationship, you're wearing two faces
Mm-hmm.
because you're wearing a
True.
mask. There's one face that you show the world, and there's another face that's there when you're behind closed doors. No one knows what goes on behind closed doors because anyone who knew me had no idea. I didn't tell my friends, my family, nobody at work knew. I would be cheerful, laughing, happy all the time. But once I got behind a closed door, it was a whole different story. So when you're looking at a toxic relationship, there are a number of things that you
Mm-hmm.
need to pay attention to because they happen over time and they build up. They don't, because nobody goes into a relationship expecting it to to be emotionally
Yeah, of
abusive or
course.
toxic. You go in because you love the guy, and he says he loves you. He loves you, but we shouldn't be afraid in a relationship where somebody says they love you. You shouldn't be afraid, and that's part of something that happens. We're afraid to be with that person because
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what they're going to do. They're erratic. The behavior is erratic.
Yeah. So, can you tell us what are the signs when you are in one? Because, like you mentioned, sometimes it's like it's a mind game,
Oh,
right?
it
It
is.
all happens inside,
Yeah.
psychologically, and that's how it gets you.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who are in toxic relationships but have um, a certain past wherein their dynamics of their family is also kind of similar to that, so
Mm-hmm.
they can go in a relationship thinking that this is normal. If
True.
somebody treats them that way, that um, it's just a normal husband and wife spat,
Mm-hmm.
and it's fine, get over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are the signs that someone can see, that this is happening, this is very toxic and it's no longer healthy for me?
One of the signs is your partner always being angry at just so everything you do, he's angry. And you don't know what you're going to do next that's going to set him off. Another thing is everything that happens, you get blamed for it.
Hmm.
So no matter if whatever goes wrong, that's your problem. You're the person responsible for that. So eventually you then start to believe that because
Hmm.
somebody says something to you all the time, you start to believe it. The other thing is that you don't get to make decisions. The decisions that you may discuss something if you're lucky, but the decisions are made by the other person, and you often don't have any input in that decision. Or if you give your input is immediately negated. So it's as if you're too stupid to have an opinion. I'm the only person who's going to make that decision, not you. And you feel all the time that you're walking on eggshells, you're off kilter.
Yeah.
You don't know what to do. And it's a very uncomfortable place to be. And another thing is being separated from your friends and your family, because then that person has total control over you. And that happens with all the bad things that are being said about your family or your friends. And eventually the friends withdraw from you, or you withdraw from them because he's upset that you're calling and spending time either on the phone or going to see your friends. To me, that's a huge red flag, because that means that then you have no support outside of him. So then when things really get horrible, who are you going to turn to? There's nobody else to turn to.
Yeah.
But him. And that's the last person you want to turn to. So there are lots of red flags. Those are just a few.
Just a few.
And him calling you nasty names and putting you down, telling you you're stupid and you're worthless, when you know darn well in yourself that you're not stupid. You've got degrees, you've got a reasonable job, or in some cases you've got a job that's very responsible, but you come home to this.
Yeah.
And at work you've got lots of strength. You're seen as an up and comer, and you're a great person at work, but you come home and you're a whole different person.
Yeah.
Whole different. The mind control is really horrible.
Yeah. And like you mentioned earlier, it's, there's nothing to show, like physically.
Nothing.
Right. And when you talk to people close to you, friends, family, sometimes it really is difficult for them to also believe that something's going on. And you
Exactly.
yourself think that you're going crazy.
Exactly. And let me
Yeah.
give you an example.
Okay. Yes.
Let's say, for example, you are in a big city. I'm in a big city, so I'm thinking of a big city, or even a small town, and you are married to a person who is held in very high esteem in that city. Let's say he's the chief judge, or he is the chief surgeon at the hospital, for example. Who are you going to tell that he's emotionally abusing you? Who will believe you? Because everybody loves him. Society holds him in high esteem. Work, everybody loves him at work. Your family often love him, but they don't know what's going on. So you start talking about this, he gets wind of it, and the next thing you know, he'll take you to court and get you branded as crazy, and you were already thinking you're crazy.
Yeah.
Take your children and kick you out. And if you're at that level of society, you're living in an upscale part of town. You're not going to go to a shelter. So you put up with it because you're used to that lifestyle. And the other thing that I want people to understand is that we think that toxic relationships only happen to people at the so-called lower level of society. Nothing could be further from the truth. You could be the cleaner in a company. You could be the CEO of that company. Doesn't matter. And it really doesn't matter if who you are. It happens to everybody. And the people who I really feel for are people who are said your abuser is your caregiver. Who are you going to tell? You can't tell anybody, because who's going to look after you?
Yeah.
Or if you're someone here and you're immigrant in North America, and your immigration status is dependent on the abuser. What are you going to do? He's got your passport, he's
Mm-hmm.
got your papers. Whether you get status depends on him. He can do whatever he wants to do with you. And those women don't know their rights.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They don't know they have rights.
Right.
So it's and I think for in many ways it's so insidious
Mm-hmm.
because it's all in here and nobody can see it. That's
Yeah.
what makes it so difficult.
Right. Now, so let's say I recognize that I am in a relationship, that is toxic or
Mm-hmm.
emotionally abusive.
Mm-hmm.
And now, what do I do? Like, where do I go? Because, like you said, not everyone knows that there
Mm-hmm.
is a hotline for it, or
Yeah.
not everyone knows that there is help, or that what they are feeling
Yeah.
is valid.
Mm-hmm.
So where do they go for help?
I think one of the first things, and this is, I'm talking from experience, you have to find somebody
Hmm.
that you trust to talk to. You can't do it on your own. You have to talk about it because unless you talk about it, nobody's going to know.
Hmm.
And what I had to do, I talked to a friend who was really close to me. She was close to me. She knew, had no idea anything was happening. And by talking to her, then she recommended a lawyer, which I started to use, but then I found another lawyer after I'd spoken to victim services. But she really helped me. The first thing she said to me is that you need to come and live with me because you have to find a place to go. And she opened her house to me. So I think that's really important, is to find somebody you can trust, whether it's if you go to a church or a
Hmm.
synagogue or a mosque or somewhere, you need to find somebody you can trust and who can do the work for you that you can't do for yourself. That's important because if you are in this kind of relationship, you probably don't have a cell phone, or if you do, that cell phone is monitored. If you have a computer, your computer is monitored. So you can't be looking up places to go, or
Hmm.
you can't be
Hmm.
looking up the topic. So you need to have somebody to do that legwork for you. For me, that's the most important
Yeah.
thing. Although we don't want to talk about it, we have to talk about it. Otherwise, you're stuck. You're really stuck.
Yeah. And I think that the most important thing that we have to remember is that there is help
Yeah,
out
there
there,
is. There is.
and it's not whatever it is that you are going through, or
Mm-hmm.
you feel, you think, that you are at one point threatened
Yeah.
inside your relationship,
Mm-hmm.
then it is something worth considering. Or
Yes.
right,
For sure. Yes.
yeah,
Nobody should live like that.
exactly.
Nobody should, especially if you've got children, because what you're doing is you are mirroring what the children are eventually
Uh-huh.
going to do. You don't want your children to be in that kind of relationship. And that's, for me, that's the hardest, is when there are children involved.
Right. So, okay, let's say that one has already left, that relationship.
Yeah.
And so he or she, it can be anybody,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Is in that place where you mentioned before, low self-esteem, low self-confidence,
Mm-hmm.
and like you don't know where to start or how to
Mm-hmm.
start. So, can you tell us what are the different ways for those who were in these kinds of relationships heal themselves and reclaim their voices? Do you have a process in place?
Yeah. Well, there are a number of things that women can do. And I think one of the first things you need to do is forgive yourself,
Mm.
because we beat ourselves up, and we don't understand how we got ourselves into this relationship, and we call ourselves all kinds of names that we would
Mm-hmm.
not tolerate from our friends calling us. I know I did. I just didn't like myself. How could you have gone into
Yeah.
these relationships? This is not how you were brought up. But it took a while, but you have to be gentle with yourself
Mm-hmm.
and forgive yourself. You also need to start visualizing. You've left one kind of life, you're going into a different one. What do I need this new life to look like? So you need to start creative visualizing. Now I have an opportunity to have a better life. What do I want it to look like? And start thinking about that. Another thing you need I would recommend is retraining your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So training your subconscious mind, because your sub many people don't realize that your subconscious mind is the one that drives you. Whatever you focus on expands.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking negative thoughts, that's that's where your life's going to go. But now you're thinking of a new life. So you need to start thinking positive thoughts. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy. It's really difficult. But in order to move on, you have to change the way you think, and you also have to look at some of the limiting beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
the things that you were taught as a child, that I need to accept this in a relationship. Well, no, you don't. So there are a number of things that you can go through. Those are just for examples. I've got
Uh-huh.
several in my book. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so it's like you said, the first one is forgiving yourself.
Forgive yourself.
And I think that is also one of the most difficult thing
Oh,
to
it's
do.
incredibly
Yes.
difficult.
Because
Incredibly.
the initial reaction would be to blame yourself for what's
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like it's my fault why I'm in this relationship. I was the one who made this choice,
yeah,
and all the rest of et cetera,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
it's also enough to drive you crazy.
It is. You're right.
Right? And
Yes.
it is a journey. That's why it's
Oh,
going a healing journey towards that.
it is.
And I think what's also important is, if forgiveness is not yet there, is being able to some sort of acceptance
Yes.
that
Accept.
this
Yeah,
happens.
yeah. And
Such
love yourself. Love
Yeah,
yourself, warts and all. Because chances are he's told you so many things about yourself that you hate
right,
yourself. Just have to start loving yourself, no matter what you look like, and it doesn't matter. You have to start loving you, and
right.
that will also go towards the
To
forgiveness.
forgive, path
Yes,
to forgiveness.
forgiveness part.
Yes, loving yourself or self
Mhm.
love is a whole another topic
A
that
whole other
we
topic.
can talk about in the future.
Yes.
So now I know you've experienced helping a lot of people
Mhm.
transition from and heal from toxic relationships.
Mhm.
What do you think, if there is one thing, what do you think is the most important thing that we need to know?
The most important thing is, I think, pay attention to what is happening in your relationship. We ignore too much. Pay attention, because as a person, you should have an idea of how you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
So pay attention, and by paying attention, then you start to notice what's happening and what things you like or you don't like, and then have an open communication with the person you're with. Because if you cannot have an open communication to talk about the things that you don't like in the relationship, that's a huge red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need to be able to talk between the two of you. You need to be able to discuss the issues in the relationship. If you can't, that's troubling, really, really troubling.
Okay.
So
So that's also part.
that's what I think is the most important thing.
Yeah. Was it Carly who said, you make conscious of what is unconscious? So it is the start, or it is a start.
Yes.
The having, like I said, is paying attention. For
Yeah.
the moment you do that, the moment that you recognize or you acknowledge that something like this is
Yeah.
happening,
Something's wrong.
then things start to change, or you can make,
Yeah. You can,
plans of
right.
what's
That's
your
right.
next step.
Yeah.
So, with that, can you tell us a little bit more about your book? So, the title of the book, let me just show that for those who are interested. It's I Dare You, Conquer Fear and Free Yourself from Emotional Abuse.
Mm-hmm. And when I started writing the book, it wasn't, I didn't wake up one day and said, I want to write a book. I just started to recognize that there were things I had learned that I felt would help other people, because we're not alone. We think we're the only people going through, or the only person going through this situation, but we're
Mm-hmm.
not. All over the world, people are going through these types of situations. So when I started to write the book, my first thought was, people need to know what the signs are. So I've got an A to Z list.
Mm-hmm.
Said, well, I'm Canadian, A to Z. Americans say A to Z. Um, in the book, and each one is a little narrative of, this is what the sign is about. Like, one of them is, say, P for power. Tina Turner says, what's love got to do with it? In this kind of relationship, love has nothing to do with it. It's all about power.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got and F is for fear. So for every letter of the alphabet, I have a narrative to say, this is a sign. And then I go on and give you tips on how to leave the relationship. And then once you leave, I have the 12-step
Mm-hmm.
program. And I gave you 4 examples: the creative visualization, loving yourself. There are 12 of them, because
Mm-hmm.
people are familiar with 12 steps. And then moving on. And I also have a workbook at the end. So each section in the book, there's a workbook with questions that you can ask yourself. And I've left space that you can write in the book, and
Mm-hmm.
and kind of work through some of the inner issues that you have. And I've also got my story in the book, and 4 other stories of 4 other women. The thing is, I had a really difficult time getting women to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I said, you're going to be anonymous, there will be nothing that would point to you. It's very, very difficult. I wanted to have more than those 4, but that's all I got. And the other thing is the safety checklist. That's really, I think, very important, because it gives you how to safeguard yourself throughout the entire process, and
Mm-hmm.
also what to do with social media and your computer and your cell phone, all of that.
Yeah.
And crisis hotlines, both for Canada and the US, so people can have an idea of wherever you are,
Mm-hmm.
where you can call for help.
Yeah.
So, and then also lots of other books in the,
Yeah.
yeah, for people to, because I mean, I've only grazed the surface. There are lots of books
True.
written out there, so places to
Yeah.
point people to if they want to get more information. So that's the book.
And for those who are not in North America, or in European countries, for those in places, in areas where it's much like of a taboo, like you
Mm-hmm.
don't really talk about
So I'll
it,
talk about it.
and it's a very traditional, like,
Oh
oh,
yes.
so the man is a man of the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, uh, what do you think, something that they can do to be able to ask help?
It goes back to, you have to talk to somebody,
Yeah.
because I've experienced a number of women who have been in those relationships who've moved to North America, and the same things are happening here. The difference here is that they've got
Right.
laws, and they've got,
There's a support.
yes,
Yeah.
support here. But you have to talk to somebody,
Hmm.
because unless you do that, nobody can help you. And you can't
Right.
do it by yourself. You simply cannot do it by yourself. And
Yeah.
that's the hardest thing to do, because you're embarrassed. You're
Hmm.
embarrassed. You don't want anybody to know, and you want to protect the guy. That's the thing. By the time you've been indoctrinated, you want to protect him. If he's the main um, breadwinner in the family,
Hmm.
it's hard.
Yeah.
I had my own job. I was lucky that I could leave. Not many women are. Not a lot of women are.
Yeah.
Just leave.
Yeah.
It's very, and I think that's what makes me so sad, is that there are many women in relationships like this who will never be ever be able to get out. Never be
Yes.
able to get out.
Yeah. And one thing that also is, I feel it's important, is to get yourself informed,
Yes.
because I mean, with the internet, you
Yes.
can always just do your initial research. If something like this, it can just,
Yeah.
anything pops out,
Yeah.
and you can see all the signs, the symptoms. You can read it online, and you
Online.
can start from there.
Yes. And go to the library, because if
Like,
you can't do it at home, or you can't, because,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
And that's one of the things the safety tips tells you, if you're doing something on your cell phone or your computer, how to get rid of it so that it's not seen.
Hmm.
So, but go to the library. I don't know what it's like in the US, but here in Canada, at least in Toronto, every library has, and I'm sure it's the whole country, every library has free computers.
Yeah.
Go use a computer at the library,
And you
and
can.
start educating yourself, because
Right.
that's the main thing. Yeah.
So, for those who are interested, to work with you, do you have any services that you offer?
Yes,
And can you tell us about that?
yes, I have a 6 month coaching program that I help women through the process to regain their self-esteem and start living again and start dreaming again. Because that's one of the things I think is important, is as you start to go through the process after you've left, is to start dreaming again.
Hmm.
Because many of us put our dreams aside, or the kind of person we want to be, the kinds of things we want to do. So start dreaming again, and start living again.
Yeah.
So that's what my 6 month program does. And people can reach me through my website,
Hmm.
CarolAnnMarshall.com.
Okay. Let me show that to. Let me show that on the screen.
Yeah, they can reach me through the website. And if you scroll down, there's a section for coaching, and you can click on that, and it will take you to my calendar, and you can set up a time, or you can email me. And on the website, there's the email address and my phone number as well. So people
Okay.
can contact me through it. And the book is available. And there's also a link to the
Hmm.
book on my website. You can also order it through Amazon.com. But you have to put the whole name in, because there are lots of idea use. So
Okay.
just to make sure. And it's available in ebook, paperback, and audio. I had to record it. If you like
That's
listening.
great. Yeah, for all types of
Yes.
learners.
Yeah. Because lots of people listen on
Yeah,
iPods. Yeah. So
right.
it's
When
audiobook.
commuting, all that.
Yeah.
That is absolutely great. So let me turn this thing off first. All right. And I would like to. Oh well, is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap this up?
I'd like to say to women, really educate yourself. And as I said before, pay attention, but realize that you're a valuable person in society. You deserve to live a lovely life without the hassles that emotional
Mm,
abuse does, or a toxic relationship does, or the pain, the heartache
yeah.
that you get. Not to say that you're not going to have experience some kind of heartache in relationships. That's normal, but not a constant situation where you're so uncomfortable in the relationship that you can't even breathe.
Right.
So dream dreams, dream big.
Oh, I love it. I mean, life is too short,
I know,
you
and it's worth
know.
living. You only have one,
Exactly. You only
so
have
live it
one. Live
well.
it. Yeah.
Live it well.
As my favorite is a poem from Mary Oliver, and this is an excerpt. And she said, "What is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?"
Oh
Uh,
yes,
isn't that beautiful?
yes.
So
And
yes.
my favorite quote, and it's
Uh
sitting
huh.
right in front of my computer right
Okay.
here, that
Let's
I
hear it.
think of it all the time, is when you come to the end of all the light you know, and it's time to step off into the darkness of the unknown, faith is knowing that one of two things shall happen. Either you will be given something solid to stand on, or you will be taught how to fly.
Mm,
That's by Edward Teller. It's,
beautiful.
you just have to take the leap,
Yeah.
and something will
Take the
good will
leap,
happen.
and here we
Something
are.
good will happen. Yes. Yeah, here we are.
Here we are talking about it. And
Yes.
I am really so grateful to have this opportunity to have this conversation with you. And I have a wonderful time. And I'm sure those who are watching right now, or those who will be watching this in the future, will learn a lot.
Yes.
And CarolAnn, I wish you all the best
You.
in your business, and I really really hope that your book will reach a lot of, or thousands, or even millions of women, men out there who need that.
Thank you.
So, with this, um, I just want to wrap up the maiden episode of the show
Yes.
with a quote from Maya Angelou, which, by the
Oh,
way,
my
I
favorite
got.
one.
I got this actually from your book. I saw this in your
Oh,
book. So let me leave you all with that. And it goes like this: we delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. And so I leave you all um, this quote, and remember that in order for you to transform into that beautiful butterfly, these things, or these challenges, these difficulties that you go through right now, are part of the journey that you call your life. And so until the next
wonderful. I
episode.
love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Great
right?
way to end. And it's been
Yeah.
a pleasure being here.
It's a
Thank you
pleasure.
so
Thank you
much.
so much, CarolAnn. And until then,
Bye
bye,
bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.